Welcome to this program in the Our Finger Lakes History series. I am Seneca County historian Walter Gable. The topic of this program is to answer the question, how many Finger Lakes are there? The most commonly agreed to answer to that question is a total of 11 lakes that make up the Finger Lakes. There are other small lakes within the greater area between Rochester and Syracuse, but they are not usually included in the Finger Lakes phrase. Starting with the westernmost lake, Conesus Lake, it is located in Livingston County. Conesus Lake is 8 miles long and has a maximum width of 1 mile. It has a maximum depth of 66 feet. Its surface water elevation is 817 feet above sea level. Next east is Hemlock Lake, located in Livingston County and partially in Ontario County. Hemlock Lake is about 7.5 miles long and has a maximum width of about 0.6 of a mile. Its surface elevation is 906 feet above sea level and has a maximum depth of 91 feet. In 1876, the city of Rochester began obtaining drinking water from Hemlock Lake via a gravity-fed pipeline 16 miles long. In 2010, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation purchased both Hemlock and Candidice Lakes from the city of Rochester. New York State DEC has pledged to keep Hemlock Lake forever wild. Motorboats on Hemlock Lake can be no longer than 16 feet in length and must have a motor no larger than 10 horsepower. Next east is Candidice Lake. Just under 3 miles in length, it is the shortest of the 11 Finger Lakes. Interestingly, the name Candidice is derived from the Iroquois word for long lake. Candidice Lake has a maximum width of about 0.4 of a mile. Its surface elevation is 1,096 feet above sea level, making it the highest elevation of all of the 11 Finger Lakes. Like Hemlock Lake, Candidice Lake was a water supply source for the city of Rochester for many years and was purchased by the New York State DEC in 2010. No houses can be built on Candidice Lake, and like Hemlock Lake, there are restrictions on boating. Just east of Candidice Lake is Honeoye Lake. Honeoye Lake is about 4.5 miles long and has a maximum width of 0.8 of a mile. Honeoye Lake has a maximum depth of 30 feet, making it the shallowest of all of the 11 Finger Lakes. Its surface elevation is 804 feet above sea level. Next east is Canandaigua Lake, 16 miles in length with a maximum width of 1.5 miles. Its surface elevation is 688 feet above sea level. Canandaigua Lake has a maximum depth of 276 feet. Shown in the lower right picture is Squaw Island, one of 2 islands on all of the 11 Finger Lakes. Keuka Lake is about 20 miles in length with a typical width of about 1/2 mile. Keuka Lake has a surface elevation of 715 feet above sea level. Keuka Lake is only one of a very few natural lakes in the world to have a Y shape. Seneca Lake is about 38 miles long and a width of nearly 2 miles. It has a maximum depth of over 600 feet, making it the deepest of the 11 Finger Lakes. The surface elevation of Seneca Lake is 445 feet above sea level. Because of its great water volume, Seneca Lake rarely freezes over. It has not frozen over since 1912. Next east is Cayuga Lake. Cayuga Lake is about 40 miles in length, making it the longest of the 11 Finger Lakes. It has a maximum width of about 3.5 miles and a maximum depth of 435 feet. Its surface elevation is 382 feet above sea level. On Cayuga Lake is Frontenac Island, the second of the 2 islands on all of the Finger Lakes. Next east is Owasco Lake. It is about 10.5 miles long and has a maximum width of 1.3 miles. Owasco Lake has a maximum depth of 177 feet. The surface elevation of Owasco Lake is 712 feet above sea level. The origin of the name of this lake comes from the Indian words for bridge over the water. Skaneateles Lake is about 16 miles long and an average width of 3/4 mile. Skaneateles Lake has a maximum depth of 315 feet. Skaneateles Lake is known as one of the cleanest lakes in the United States. It has a surface elevation of 863 feet above sea level. Otisco Lake is the easternmost of the 11 Finger Lakes. Otisco Lake has a length of 5.4 miles and a maximum width of 3/4 mile, a maximum depth of 66 feet. Otisco Lake has a surface elevation of 785 feet above sea level. So those are the 11 Finger Lakes, but now to provide some information on some of the other lakes that are not considered to be one of these 11 Finger Lakes. One of these non-Finger Lakes is Cayuga Lake. As you can see in this map, Cayuga Lake is located in Schuyler County near Route 228 between Odessa and Trumansburg. Cayuga Lake is approximately 2 miles long and has a maximum depth of 26 feet. Much of the shoreline of Cayuga Lake is private property, but there is a state-owned public boat launch at the north end of Cayuga Lake. There are 2 other small lakes that we can talk about together because they are so close to each other. They are Juanita Lake and Lamoka Lake. These 2 lakes are located at the border area of Schuyler County with Steuben County. Lamoka Lake is just over 1.5 miles in length and has a maximum depth of 40 feet. Juanita Lake is 3.5 miles in length and has a maximum depth of 29 feet. The area, especially that of Lamoka Lake, is the location of a significant archaeological site of the Lamoka culture. The Lamokas were an archaic hunting and gathering peoples about 3500 BC. So these 3 lakes that I have just talked about, Cayuga, Juanita, and Lamoka, are not considered to be Finger Lakes, even though they are located in the area of the Finger Lakes, and Juanita Lake is longer than Canandaigua Lake. I hope you have enjoyed learning a few details about the 11 lakes that make up the Finger Lakes and the 3 that are not considered one of the 11 Finger Lakes. We who live in the Finger Lakes probably take for granted the natural beauty of these Finger Lakes. Let me say by pointing out that the term Finger Lakes itself was not used until 1883 when Thomas Chamberlain used that wording in a U.S. Geological Survey paper. I hope you have enjoyed this segment of Our Finger Lakes History.